Hello, and welcome to my short lecture on the Industrial Revolution. As we go through this, you might think about what a region needs for an Industrial Revolution to start, what technology does Europe have prior to the Industrial Revolution, and what tech will come out from the revolution. If you want to connect it to world history, you can also try to figure out why in the world is China not first to industrialize? Why is it Europe? So, on the eve of the Industrial Revolution, Great Britain was well suited to start. They have natural resources like coal and other items. They have great ports and rivers and canals all set up for boat traffic. They have an infrastructure that's in good condition compared to other places of the world, and they have funds available to help it to spread to other areas as need be. They have a ready workforce with skilled mechanics, money available for investments, and the very important thing, a stable government. So, to be able to support an industrial revolution, you need to have enough food in the cities. The agricultural revolution happens right prior to the industrial revolution. It's no surprise. We're going to be having the enclosure movement happening, and we are going to also have Jethro Tull invent a seed drill so that we can have crops evenly spaced apart and in perfect rows, which is going to help more crops live to be able to be eaten. And then we're going to have Charles Townsend go and discover that if you put turnips in fields that would traditionally lay bare for an entire year, that the minerals are still replenished, so the field is good to go, and you still got turnips to eat. No, turnip soup's probably not the most delicious thing to eat, but if it's a bad year and you run out of the other crops that you produced, I'd be happy to have some turnip soup because I at least have something to eat. So English farmers are just only behind the Netherlands, which really has to have a concentrated agricultural system because of large city populations and not that much farmland. So England is in very good straits as it goes into the Industrial Revolution. It also has the ability to have its own people buy plenty of manufactured goods. They have more disposable income than other places in the world. So I mentioned that enclosure movement. The English and the Dutch have been enclosing and fencing off land since the 1500s, since the Tudors in England. And now common lands used to be shared by everybody. You can have Betsy the cow and somebody else's sheep going in and eating the grass from this common territory. But now we're having it closed off, fenced off, and private people are now owning and operating this land, which forces some smaller farmers to have to move to the city because they cannot survive on just their own land alone. They have been utilizing this common land, which now no longer is available. So that does put a burden on some families. However, it does help the city populations to boom to be able to then have a ready workforce. So other things are helping with that because the British also have a population boom. As you can see, from 1750, Great Britain had a population of 9.3, and by 1850, it's 27.3 million. What do you need to support your growing population? More food, more housing, plates, forks, chairs, every other item that you need to simply have in a house to support it. The British also, like I discussed, have a stable government. We had the Glorious Revolution happen in 1688, which limited the power of the monarchs even more, giving more power to Parliament, giving more power to the people. And so we have low taxes. We're not in Spain, we're not in other places, France, that keeps taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing the people. No, we have low taxes. And so people are able to invest in the commercial market. And invest could be as opening and starting your own business, or it could also just be you're buying those plates, you're buying that new chair instead of fixing that old one that keeps falling apart. But you are spending money and you have money to spend. Also, the British have their overseas colonies, which is going to help them be able to have access to raw materials, but also access to new markets to be able to sell their items. Because we are in a global economy, and we have been talking about like the British trade involving wool since even the Hundred Years' War. But now that global economy is growing and growing and growing, especially with ships now going all around the world from Europe. So British trade routes were growing and opening shipping routes to the Americas, Asia, and to Africa. And colonies provided, like I said, those cheap raw materials and markets for British goods as mercantilism is fully in operation, but capitalism will soon be taking over. So we have what is always known as that triangular trade going on, where we have raw goods coming from places like the Americas going over to Great Britain, which they manufacture these items. Those items could go right back to the Americas, or they could be going to Africa or other places. And then we unfortunately have slavery and Middle Passage, bringing people from Africa over to the Caribbean or to the American colonies. And then we have, of course, then those raw goods heading on back. But because of this, we had that population boom, which I have been discussing. So here is London in 1666, and boom, 1897. It's got a lot bigger. And the British are just going to continue to build their colonial base. No, we do not have the 13 colonies under British control at the exact same time. All of India is under British control. However, you can see all the various locations that Britain has colonies throughout its history. That's pretty massive. So the start of the revolution, it's a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not like boom, we snap our fingers and wow, suddenly we have tea kettles and railroads getting manufactured in factories and also bringing manufactured goods to other places. The British had people who were ready to invest in new markets, and the cotton textile industry is the first to experience this new revolution. We're going to have new machines coming out to speed up the process of making textiles, flying shuttles, spinning jenny in the water frame. And it makes sense that it's the textile industry first because we all need clothes, we need sheets, we need blankets, we need other things. And these are things that we do need to replace because jeans get holes in them. We all know that. So we need to replace that. So what this does is it helps harness a faster way to make textiles. Unfortunately, though, for some people that have been surviving on the cottage industry, or also known as the putting out system, has been women going and making textiles in their houses. This is another blow, along with the enclosure movement, to small independent families, farmers that have been doing whatever they can to survive because now the factories are making the textiles and the woman in our house cannot keep up with that. So we do have some people that are very angry at these machines, and we do have a group come out, the Luddites, who go around and destroy machines and attack factories. But usually what they're doing is just putting people like them out of work, which isn't really good in the long run because how are those people going to be, feeding their families after you just close down that factory temporarily? But factories were located near sources of power, which means that areas grew in population super fast that we're not really expecting it. Other technology that we have come out. Thomas Newcomen develops the steam engine, and then James Watt goes and improves it. Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin, and Abraham Darby smelts iron. And if you want to learn more about the process on your own, you can go to these YouTube videos or the How Stuff Works video and learn more about the process. So here is the Newcomen engine used to remove water from mines. And like I said, Great Britain has plenty of coal, and they're also going to be producing iron. Britain is lucky to kind of have what they have. Coal mining turned into a major British industry. In 1700, they have 2.5 million tons extracted per year, and it moves up to 11 million tons by 1800. This replaces wood, water, beasts of burden, or manpower to power machines. Coal can now run the steam engines, and Abraham Darby then goes in, uses coke to turn iron ore into iron, which is going to be a stronger metal. So, going on, moving towards like the second industrial revolution, we have railroads coming out all throughout Great Britain and Western Europe. 1825, the first railroad ran 40 miles from the coal fields of Darlington to Stockton. But then, right after that, in 1830, we have the first passenger train line open between Liverpool and Manchester. And then from there on out, it is just quick expansion with railroads. By 1850, 6,600 miles of rail were laid in Great Britain alone. So this is a new way to invest, was to jump on the railroad bandwagon, which is going to be a great investment to make money quick, but railroads are going to have their booms and their busts, which we talk about later on, where certain railroads, when they go bankrupt, can cause huge panics or recessions. But anyway, we now have railroads. Here is that Liverpool-Manchester line. Hope it's not going to rain. So for labor, the cottage industry was dying out. People are moving to the cities, and unfortunately, we have child labor. No need for a social system for children in Great Britain during the Revolution. Have them work. If their parents die prematurely, have them work. We can have orphans work. We can have other things, and they're doing jobs that are very dangerous. You have children that are in the mines every single day. There's a story of the 6-year-old girl that would sit in a completely dark room, a chamber inside a mine. And then she would just be there to kind of have the cars as they would go up, which they would have a little light on it. They would stop by her and she would just kind of like pull a lever and then they would continue on whatever route they needed to. And she would just sit in that darkness all day long by herself. Of course, we also have the chimney sweeps, which is a very dangerous job for children because you could get burned or you can get stuck, and other various things, getting killed by a textile machine or any other thing. Commercial markets are forming. And so we have standardized sizes. Now you all can go find your standardized shoe at a store. You don't need a cobbler to make your shoes just perfect for your feet. You can now go and get your size 8, 9, 10 shoes, and you're good for that. So the guild system tried to save certain jobs, but when factories come in and mass produce things, they really cannot save things anymore. So I'm sorry, Cobblers Guild, you're probably not going to be able to compete against factories. If you would like to, you can go on and watch Children of the Revolution. Great documentary. Anyway, so for the changing family in the early years of the Industrial Revolution, very little changed as fathers had their wives and children work with or for him. The cottage industry is still going to be present, but as machine technology grew, unmarried women and children began to work in the factories and in other areas as well. And of course, they might be doing the same work as a man, but they are not going to be paid as well. Children, of course, are going to be paid the least, and then women, and then men getting paid the most money. So some children earn money for schooling, and then they could move up the ladder, the social ladder, but that's rare. As the Industrial Revolution grew, more dynamics changed, and more workers were needed, and some traditional jobs were disappearing due to the machine. And children are now living at home longer and longer and longer because they didn't have other economic means. So, for the evolving family, most women working, married or unmarried, were domestic servants, not working necessarily in factories, but they do have some obviously working in factories and other in workshops. Some households needed the money from the mother and the children to be able to survive. And a lot of children were very happy to come home and give their money to their mother so that their family uh, economics could function and that they could stay afloat as a family. However, over time, we do have children labor laws coming in and other labor laws for adults as well. The Factory Act of 1819, children can only work 12-hour days, only 12-hour days. It's fine. Those kids can handle it. Then we have the Factory Act of 1833, where children had to be at least 9 years old to work, and children under 13 could only work 9 hours because we're starting to realize maybe they can't work 12 hours. I would say that maybe a 9-year-old shouldn't work 9 hours, but that's my modernist perspective here. By 1847, Parliament passed a 10-hour workday for adults, and then we have the labor unions starting to rise up, pushing for more and more laws to help people and to like push for things like the weekend. Ooh, weekend. We have this group coming out, British Chartism, working class movement that started during the recession in the 1830s in Great Britain. British workers simply wanted social reform, so they draft up the 6-point charter and they present it to Parliament, but it's never going to get passed. The movement was divided as some advocated for violence. To be able to get their ways through, while others wanted it to pass through peacefully. However, it's never formally adopted, and the movement ends in 1848. So, new political movements and political and economic ideologies are going to be coming out because times keep changing with the Industrial Revolution. Capitalism grew and was expanded thanks to the work of Adam Smith and his book that he published in 1776, The Wealth of Nations. And Britain was politically and economically stable country that had a credit system and a stock market. And so new wealth and larger middle class could be established and continue to grow. Negatives, obviously, of the Industrial Revolution are pollution and disease. Cholera continually hits European cities like London, and it does not discriminate. You can be poor and get cholera and die. You can be rich and get cholera and die. But the Thames is a nasty river. It's full of pollutants. It's full of diseases. It's full of germs. And yeah, your water is not safe to drink. So you can get cholera. One bad pump in one neighborhood, a water pump, can take out that neighborhood so fast with cholera. Crime also increases. So Britain goes and does transportation, sending criminals to Australia. Of course, you can always come back from Australia if you got the money. If not, welcome to your new home forever. And then we start having police forces also develop. We also have people coming out with population theories because they're seeing these population booms coming up. Malthus wrote essay on the principle of population in 1798. The population will continue to grow and eventually overburden the food supply, making the conditions far worse for the working class. And his theory is now going to be used for why Great Britain does not help the Irish during the potato famine. They kind of just said, well, the population got too big, and this is just how things work out. And so when America actually showed up, the United States showed up with a boat that was full of food to drop off for the Irish, and then that boat would also take Irish back to America. Great Britain refused the United States to have that boat land, mainly because of Malthus's theory. We do also have David Ricardo's theory coming out. He theorized that there would be a cycle where the population would increase when wages increase because people can have and support more babies. But then jobs are going to become less and less available, and people over time will then have less children because that next generation doesn't have as many jobs as the previous. We also have coming out utilitarianism with Jeremy Bentham, the guy who you could still go and visit in London today because he's stuffed. Anyway, he came up with utilitarianism, the greatest good for the greatest number of people. To summarize it, that's how legislation should pass, and that's how we should look at things. We then also have utopian socialists coming out. Count Claude Henry de Saint-Simon advocated for a society run by specialists or by experts. He would coordinate what individuals and groups did so that there would be social harmony throughout. Robert Owen sought to create communities, which he did, where factory and farm workers lived and worked together. He did not see how there could be ever kind of like the human industrial environment under a capitalistic market. So it's tried in various locations in Europe and then also in the United States in New Harmony, Indiana. But they mainly failed, except for there was one in Europe that does survive until the 1970s. Another idea coming out from utopian socialists are the phalanx communities. They advocated for agricultural communities. People rotated their tasks. They did not have to do the same one over and over and over again. So you can work in the factory and you can work in the fields. You can rotate. Keep it real. And then we're going to be having the communists coming out. We do have some in the beginning where we have a form of communism attached to Christianity, and then we have the ones that are definitely not associated, and that is the Marx and Engels form. So Marxism, Karl Marx believed that class conflict would cause the proletariat or the working class to overthrow the bourgeoisie, those wealthy people, and bring about the abolition of private property, cancel out private property and social class system. That's Marxism. He's got a partner there, Friedrich Engels, who goes and publishes The Condition of the Working Class in England. The two called for more radical change than socialism, and they wanted the total abolition of private property rather than just a redistribution. Also, during the time period, we have our anarchists coming in. We got Auguste Blanc, who wanted violent overthrow. Oh, yes, you have a car. Yes, you have a blue race car and two blue race cars. Wonderful. The people on YouTube are so happy to know that. Okay, go out to your racetrack upstairs and play with Caitlin. Bye-bye. Anyway, back to anarchists. So Augusta Blanc wanted the violent overthrow of capitalism. A new phase of anarchist terrorism is going to impact the worldwide politics. The United States are going to lose a president to anarchists, and also we are going to be having the Black Hand going and assassinating Archduke Franz Ferdinand with the beginning of World War One. We also have Pierre Joseph Proudhon, who advocated for mutualism through peaceful means. A system of small businesses would exchange goods based on mutual recognition of labor. And then we have anarchists that reject the dominance of government and industry altogether. So there you go. There is our PowerPoint presentation for the day. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.